Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Talking Trade Live with On the Tools. And it is live because I'm in a mate's workshop. Actually, 50th of the year from On the Tools last year, Stephen Barrett. He's got no kettle and it's bloody freezing. Apart from that, life is great. And we are today talking about suppliers, which we all have to deal with, no matter what trade we are. And I've got two brilliant guests, Katie, the Bricky chick, who's been on before, Bricklayer of the Year last year at On the Tools, and Glenn, who owns and runs a construction company down in Brighton. Welcome to you both. Firstly, Glenn, running a construction company, what are your main fears for next year? We've obviously had lockdown number 2, which we're coming out of. We got that thing called Brexit, which has been pushed under the carpet. What are your fears for next year, mate?
I don't know. I don't think I've really got that many. I mean, in terms of our industry, it doesn't seem to have stopped. We seem to be, carry on as normal. Unfortunately for others, it's been a bad thing, but for us, I think it's not been too bad. I think the only downfall would be I'd say like at the beginning of this year, there was no multi-finished plaster for 6 months, and we was all scrapping around, and there's like £6 a bag, we're paying 30 quid a bag and 40 quid a bag, and these people online. So apart from maybe it going on lockdown and some materials going on hold for certain trades, for me, it ain't really changed.
Well, it's certainly, everyone's been busy. The phone's definitely been a lot busier. I think people are now wanting to get work done, certainly residentially wise. Katie, you're on that lovely wall still. Are you finding any difficulties with material, your aggregate, your sand, your dust, fab, bricks?
Not now. At the beginning it was, because I did a job out in someone's garden, just an boundary wall, and that was trying to get even just bricks in, because you couldn't get in, you had to book for a slot, and then if you was getting there, it was just basically the time of getting the materials, really, that it took a little bit longer. And then work slowed down quite a lot, because I think a lot of people are worrying about money that's for the up and coming year. So,
well, I think one thing, I had a message on my social media from Trade Link Online, and he's made a really good point that the initial lockdown, it was quite well organised about driving into bays at your suppliers, get loading up that way. But moving forward, if we're going to have to do that, Glenn, you're obviously you were in London years ago. We haven't got the space up here, mate. It's not really going to work, is it?
It isn't, no. I can't imagine that. I mean, for me, are you talking about in terms of like everyone having to just park up?
Yeah, there's talk, isn't there, of having almost a click and collect system, which is great if you're out in the country, but in a big city, Leeds, Bristol, London, Liverpool, Birmingham, I can't see how it's going to work.
No, it was a nightmare anyway. Like, just for instance, let's not talk about big shops. Well, I say big shops, but places like going to Tool Station or like Screw Thieves, like lining up and click and collect before I have to line up and get all my stuff. That was actually a nightmare. You couldn't even get they wouldn't even let you have a book. The normal books that you flick through, they wouldn't even let you touch a book. So if then I can't imagine driving up to these big, whether it's Wix or B&Q or these places and having to click and collect and not being able to go to the store. It'd be ridiculous. The amount of times I forget something and I have to go back 4 times because I forgot something at the shop, and having to do that all day, every day would be a joke.
Well, one thing I want to throw at both of you, I know what the answer is going to be, but I'm working with a couple of suppliers suggesting it. It's not getting through so far. Great to see on first lockdown the essential workers, so NHS staff, etc., getting to be in the supermarkets first for the first hour. How about trades get the first hour at suppliers, Glenn?
So you're talking like basically when the shop's open at 7 a.m. we get first dibs.
Yeah, let's say 7 to 8. So anybody from your national suppliers, your Jewsons, Travis, Selcos, to your Tool Stations, all the way down to your regionals, that first hour is us trades in the door, because we can get our gear and get to work. We're not going to be stood behind, some old beer looking at a pot of paint.
True. the only problem with that is, can you imagine how many people, like how many of it, we'll end up being in a line from 7 to 8 because there'll be just trades galore. But what about like how do you justify who's a trade and who's not?
Get a trade card.
Yeah, I suppose it's a trade card. But I mean, again, like I said before, the amount of times that I have to go back. I have to go back to the store. I must have gone about 4 or 5 times before because I need this, I need that, and I forgot this. And that's the handy thing about it. But,
well, Jim Gatehouse has just sent a comment in saying Travis did time slots last lockdown. But Glenn, back to your point, if you keep forgetting stuff, because I've got a memory like a sieve, how would you do it? Let's put it that way, because different companies have tried different things. But can you see a realistic way of doing it if that's the way we've got to work?
Honestly, you know what? It's a strange one for me because I'm not keen on all this. You know, I don't want to go too far into it because I get getting slightly political. But you know, 1 minute we're 2 meters apart, next minute we're rubbing shoulders around Wicks and all around the supermarkets and stuff like that. So, you know, we could go too far into it. But I don't know. Maybe there could be a system like I'm not too sure. You know these companies that have when your car breaks down and they run the stuff out to you. You know, they've got these little vans that I forget what they're called. They're like a 24-hour mobile.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a delivery service in that somehow, instead of it just being a big lorry loads. They've got these little vans that are local that you just order and then it comes to you within a half hour and they're local to you. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, like really eats, but like with cement.
What do you, Katie, what do you think? Joe Zoller said here at SIG, which obviously all of us know, they do a 1-in, 1-out system.
Yeah, no.
Back to your supermarket's a bit of a mess again, isn't it?
Yeah, because again, it's how long is that person going to take in there? So you could be there. You've got a job to be at 8, and yeah, fair enough. You're behind him at 7:15, but he could just still be in there getting all his stuff ordered, and then not come out till 7:45, and then he's got to load his van up, and then it's your turn. So it's like, oh, no, don't sit well. There's not much common sense around this whole practice at the minute. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, I think with this, we have to see what our delightful government come up with next year, and also work with our suppliers to try and get what's best. Moving on to this lovely word, which I can't stand, terms. All suppliers have their terms. They sit down with you at the end of each year and set the terms for the following year. My theory on this, Glenn, is yes, you set terms, but if you go in and say, I've got a massive loft conversion coming up, I need a load of PIR. Oh, let me see what I can do on the price. Have we got to get a bit more with it on this? Because there's a lot of time wasting, isn't there?
There is a lot of time wasting, yeah. You know what? I've actually got now to a point where I've got to a point now where if I have that, you know, you get that one customer. Yeah. You always get that one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, one. You know, 9 out of 10 are normally good, but you get that one. And if I've learned something, is I've got an eye for someone that I just won't have to go, you know, terms and conditions, and I want my life and I want my work to run smoothly as possible. So it needs to be smoothly in any terms and conditions, and it needs to be all put. It needs to be, instead of like me turning up and going, I'll do that job for 500 quid, turn up the next day. I've now got to a point where I'm actually being very particular about what they want. They've got it down on record what they want, and if they go back on that, I'll just do the job. So,
sorry, meaning with terms, the prices we get set by suppliers. So when you walk in, you know you're paying £1.45 a metre of 4x2. You're paying 5.5 plus VAT and finish. It just seems to me, these prices agreed, But then the following year you go in and then they say, oh, right, you need a lot more timber this year. Let's see what I can do on the price. It's a bit of a bit of a thing, isn't it?
I see what you mean. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, again, when it comes to big suppliers, see, my trade's a bit different. I noticed prices going up, but in terms of my work, but I think when it comes down to big stuff like maybe projects that you're doing and stuff like that, it doesn't really affect me that much. You know, it's kind of like, if I had to like an analogy, when I go into a petrol station and I buy some petrol, I'm not the person who will drive 2 miles out of the way to go and get something, you know, different, you know, like a cheaper cost. I'll just get it because I need it. So if I know terms change and prices go up, but it doesn't really bother me in that way. I just go and get what I need.
Katie, what do you think? Because I've had terms set over the years, and you go in the following year, and I mean, you know, I won't mention the brand, but a certain type of sheet insulation a few years ago put prices up 22% in the middle of the year. Now I had a loft conversion booked in where we used bucket loads of the stuff, and then, you know, do you think we need to be a lot more modern with the way that we work with suppliers in terms of pricing? Because, you know, you go into a store, you've got your terms set, you get the wrong person on the counter, they charge you full price. You get your account through at the end of the month, and you're paying what you shouldn't be paying. It's not right, is it?
Are you talking to me? I can't hear you very well. Like, sorry, you cracked up a bit. I was like...
No, I'm just saying the terms we've got that we agree at the end of a year with suppliers, regional, national, you know, independents, whatever it is, we then end up getting halfway through the following year and there's a hike in prices, or they try and do a lower price because you've got a big job on. It's a lot of time wasting trying to muck about with prices.
I think it should just be loyalty. I think it should all just be down to loyalty base. And it's a case of, I think in the trade, it's not what you know, it's who you know, isn't it? And if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So if I'm going to continuously come to you and not bring my custom, so to say, but choose you as my chosen merchant, and we're going to keep coming back, then surely you should value me as a customer to keep coming back and going, but we're not going to put the prices up. Here's your trade card or whatever. But we're also not going to change the terms halfway through and make you pay more, because our wages haven't gone up. So why does the price of living all of a sudden go up? It doesn't equal it out.
Well, one thing, Glenn, now I've had a report from a friend who's been in the timber industry for years. He's on the supply side. We've got massive price rises coming with Brexit. Now, I don't know how we're going to cope. We're not talking 10, 20%. We could be talking 40 to 50%. So if you do a lot of conversions, a lot of stud work, you know, timber's used in most projects, even a bathroom refit. You know, if you've got to level the floor out, whatever.
Yeah.
How are we going to pass these prices on, mate? Can you imagine having a job booked in for March, telling the customer timber's gone up 40%?
Yeah.
Idiots.
Here comes the recession.
Yeah.
I think you're just going to have to put it on there that, you know, things could. I mean, if it was me, I personally wouldn't. Now that we're coming to the end of the year, I probably would. If I'd done any quotes this year, I would say, like, you know, in terms of what's going to be happening does it start from the beginning of January? Is this when it all kicks in?
This is what they're saying. Obviously, as we all know, Brexit's not been even attempted to be finalised yet. But if you know, no deal or whatever's going to go through, because of all the, you know, timber coming from Eastern Europe and Scandinavia, you'd end up seeing a lot of levies chucked on, and we're going to be paying a lot more. There's talk of a minimum £2 a metre in 4x2 plus a vodka and tonic.
Oh, so well, obviously, our prices will have to rise. It's not like someone can undercut you and go and find some other wood and timber somewhere else. It's not only us. It's not only you that's going to be raising your prices. Everyone's going to have to raise their prices, and it's going to probably come down to maybe people not getting certain jobs done, and
it's just if the price of the material goes up, the price of the job goes up, doesn't it? Really, and if people haven't got that money to pay for the materials or the job, then really a lot of people are going to be out of work. So it's whether people can afford it to get the supplies and keep up with the wage of what we charge.
Well, Anthony Muddy's made a comment about suppliers need to be dealt with for overcharging or hiking their prices up as and when. Now, it's true because, you know, randomly you can get insulation or timber or plaster or aggregates. They just put it up. They often don't tell us, Glenn. They
Yeah,
could
that's
start
right.
being more transparent because it's starting to piss me off.
Yeah, you're right. As it goes, you're bang on. I noticed it yesterday. Where was I yesterday? I noticed it yesterday. I know it's quite random, but it was like on a bag of, I don't know, like a bag of bonding. It's like 10 quid. It's like 10 quid it's 10 quid a bag now. Well, 10 quid a bag. If you go in Travis Perkins, it might be even more expensive. But you're right. They don't really, and it doesn't really just gradually go up. It seems to kind of hike up a lot. You know, like 2-3 quid on the top of the bag.
Say about £2-3. Just
Yeah, 2-3 quid on the bag. Like I remember about, it might have only been about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, you could go into like a service shop, let's say Weeks, and you get like 5 bags of plaster, 25 quid. And now they're like 7.5 quid a bag. So they've got up 2.5 quid a bag in the space of 4 years. So that's, you know what I mean? There's inflation and then there's stupidity, you know.
But they're doing that knowing they can get away with it because at the moment, yeah, you've got Makewood that are starting to do their own plaster, but, you know, British Gypsum have still got pretty much a monopoly. They could charge 20 quid a bag. We wouldn't have a choice. And as a spread, what are you going to do?
I know, especially now because they knew how desperate like times were. Like who does that? Like who?
That's taking it back.
Who goes and buys up all the materials and then starts putting them on eBay for like 40 quid a bag, you know, causing a nightmare for every plasterer around the UK to have to go and like meet these people and pay 30 quid a bag when they should be 7 quid a bag. Do you know what I mean? Like and they knew it as well. And then we're only getting supplied five bags you know, every time we go into a shop, it was the demand was so high, and people were just taking the mickey out of it. And luckily, it's back to normal now. But it seems like since it's come back, it seems like the prices have gone up even more. So yeah, you're right. They're the only guys I would buy a plaster off, you know.
But Katie, surely, you know, we're in 2021 next year. They need to get with the times and work closely with us as their customers because, you know, I don't want to get my invoice through at the end of each month and there's stuff on there and you think, where's that price come from? I still think we're working almost like we're in the 80s still.
If you're well known to that business or the merchants or whatever, really, if you're a regular, then I don't get what's up with just sending out an email or a text or, do you know, like putting it up on the signage when you go to the shop, we are increasing prices. Because when somebody's putting sale on, they're putting the price, we are dropping prices. So why can't they just do the same and just let us know and prepare you? Because there's nothing worse than walking into the shop and going, okay, right, we've got all this, and then having to ring the customer back and going, oh, just to let you know, the prices have gone up, but I wasn't aware, so now I look like a massive muppet. Can I have some money, please? Do you know? Or if it's just at the end of it where you've priced it up and then you've then got to go back and you're like, oh yeah, no, sorry, like 2020 it was this price, but because everything's been on hold and we've had to come back again this year, it's now this. Could lose the whole job. And that's an unexpected change that nobody's aware of, which is then could cost you thousands of money.
Well, Dave Gutierrez, who's been on the show before, good bricklayer, not far from me. Certain well-known merchants own materials such as British Gypsum, Celotex, etc. They have power over price increases, but they look at it as win-win. It's shocking. Agreed. There's one big company which is a national supplier, but they have offshoots that does tile adhesive, self-leveling under a different name. Yet they charge more than companies that have to buy it off them. And I just think, Glenn, is it about time suppliers got a lot more transparent and honest with their customers like us? Because it's not enough trying to run a business, let alone when you don't know what you're paying for stuff.
Yeah, Trent, mate, that's the whole thing. You come next year, they've got to be more transparent. If they want us to buy their, you know, we've got to start, you know, not just materials, but we've got to start making and supplying everything that's we're now going to be in Brexit, so we've got to start building and making stuff that's British like British gypsum. You know, we've got to stop getting stuff from abroad, relying upon stuff from abroad. You know, we've got to build this industry inside the UK. And that can mean anything. That can mean any kind of tools. We've just got to I think we've got to learn to to build and construct stuff ourselves and not rely on other countries around the world.
Problem is, let's go back to timber. My mate Nick, who gave me the report, he said obviously homegrown timber is fast grown, and it's not as good a quality. You know, there's talk of that running low on stock, so we've got to go to Latvia, Europe, Norway, Scandinavia. I'm worried they're going to be charging what they want. And just to answer James Richards, he's made a good point. Do you not have special prices with suppliers if you're purchasing large quantities over 12 months? Yeah, I do. I have a rep that comes and sits down with me sort of autumn time. He says, right, this is what you paid for a bag of soft. This is what you paid for the length of 4x2. And they tell us, James, as I'm sure you're aware, you get your manufacturer price rises. You obviously then have a discussion with them and you get your terms set. My issue is when you get your invoice, someone's not put the correct terms on. So rather than paying £1.40 a length of 4x2, it's at £2. Then you've got to spend the time arguing it, getting it credited, which is a ball ache from the highest order. So I think we should move a lot more into 2021.
Do you not go back and debate it?
It's time. It's time. We're all pushed for time, and having to finish a day early to go back in. Oh well, yeah, it's a problem on the system. Then you've got to speak to the accounts department. Then you've got to wait for a credit, and it's hard enough running, as you know, Glenn, running a business, let alone doing all of this. Let's move on to quality of materials, because we quickly touched upon there. Yes, it'd be great to get a lot of small stuff made in Britain, so we haven't got to rely on Eastern Europe or Scandinavia or States, China. Do you think, Katie, we should be looking a bit more at manufacturing in the UK, or do you think we're doing as much as we can?
If the money's there, and we've got enough money to manufacture it all in the UK, and just don't know if the resources are here to do it. I'm not overly clued up on that, so I'm not going to be able to answer that question. Sorry.
I think a good question for viewers: would you pay, say, 10-15% more if it was manufactured in the UK? You're supporting local businesses.
Yeah.
I think we would. We're proud to be British, and I think if we can get more stock or materials made here, I mean, obviously you get your aggregates, your sand, your dust, your like one. That's all quarried from here. Certainly, most of it is. I think it would be great to sort of get the big sort of British side of it back, because it wasn't that long ago. Most of the gear came from here anyway. I know there's rumours that a lot of plaster comes from Spain because the ore is ironed out there, even though it's meant to be a British company. I think my worry is Brexit's coming up. If we don't get a deal, we could end up paying absolutely through the roof for materials next year. You mentioned timber going up. There's talk of insulation 22% year on year again. Glenn, it's got to stop, isn't it? It's getting out of hand.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because you're right. We don't know what's going to happen with this. If we get a deal, apparently we're not. Apparently we are. The fact that we're relying on bloody presidents, that if we're going to get a deal, it really annoys me. It pains me to even talk about that crap. But it's we're at the bottom of the queue. It's always it's just so much. And you know what? Let's just see what happens come January. I mean, there's going to be a demand. Let's just hope they don't take the mickey out of it by saying, well, you're not part of Europe anymore. We're going to charge you this, and if you don't pay this, then you're not going to get it. We're going to pay it, aren't we? Let's face it.
Yeah.
If the prices do go up, we're going to need it, so we're going to pay it. Which means, in the long term, it's just going to cost everyone so much more money, and it could put people out of jobs. It could potentially stop people from buying houses, having houses built. There's so many like downfalls of it happening. But hopefully our demand is so high, and they see Britain as still a, you know, as a place that they can, you know, we can trade with, that it doesn't go that way. And I think it's just kind of, let's just see what happens in the, like you said, in the first few months, and see if it does get a bit out of control, because then there needs to be something said.
Well, one thing I would like to see more, and all of us are in the same boat here, I would like to see a bit more support for micro and SMEs. You know, if you're a one-man band, if you've got 8 staff, 15 staff, not your big boys. Because to me, despite what some of these federations are saying, us SMEs aren't getting the support we need. Katie, you work for yourself, you agree?
Yeah, fully agree. Yeah, God, it's yeah. And the thing is, as well, is next year the taxes are about to go up on it to like something like 80% or something, like something high. So then we're going to be hit even more. So you've got your high tax, and then you've got your high price on materials, and then you're going to have your high rate of living that's going to go up even more. So all of a sudden, even though we've got to wait and see what it is till next year, we all know that it's going to hit us in the pocket hard next year.
I just think we need a bit more support. You know, when there was that shortage of bricks and blocks years ago, your big boys, your big house developers, your nationals were stockpiling in fields. You know, when we're doing an extension, we just need a few thousand bricks. We couldn't get it for love or money. Glenn, do you reckon us SMEs actually need a bit more support? It's all very well being talked about in the press, but we actually need to see this start happening before we go pop.
Yeah, you know what? Not mentioning no names, but touching back on the whole demand for less, like I said, for multi-finish. I know the big companies. I know for a fact the big companies who had these accounts with these big companies, they were getting their chunk. They were getting their supply of tools, because they were the ones who were spending 1 million, 2 million, 3 million pound a year, and they weren't on a budget of, you only allowed 5 per person, you only allowed 10 per person, you know. So again, like Kate said earlier, it's who you know. These big companies, they're always going to be all right. These big developers, they're always going to be okay. They're going to get first dibs all the time. So us smaller companies, yeah, it's going to be a lot tougher.
But how many times do you read in the press or hear on the radio, you know, industry federations, oh, we got to support SMEs? It's bollocks.
Yeah,
I've been doing this for years. We need support. As you say, shortage of materials. Your big boys are always going to get it. Katie, we're not going to get it. We're just 10-man bands. We need support, SMEs, don't we? A lot more than's going on at the moment.
Yeah, we need we just need a little bit more of a say and a stand. Just because we're little, it doesn't mean that we don't count. Just because we're not giving in the same amount of finances to the country as a company is that's got 15,000 employees. It just means that at the end of the day, we're still making a living as much as they are, but it doesn't mean that we're any less right to support that they are, just because there's only one of us or two of us.
Well, we're running out of time. A few points just to finish off with. We've obviously sort of looked at terms, and we think suppliers need to be a bit more transparent with price increases. We've tried to work out how we're going to do click and collect. That's going to be an interesting one to see what happens sort of beginning of January. The support from SMEs, I'm a big advocate of this. Listen, I don't want to read about it. I want to see something happening. So I think it would be good to maybe have a show next year about how we can do that, actually get a voice to government, to big suppliers, that we can be looked after, because we represent 95% of the industry. Even though there's only one of us or 10 of us in our firm, you know, we represent such a big portion. I think we need a bit more looking after, you know, access to materials, as you said, Glenn. Just to finish off, we've got, you know, I always like to finish on a good point. The great thing is we're busy. The phone's ringing. People want work doing residential. There's obviously the commercial sector, which is going up still. There's always development near me. Glenn, you've got an exciting year ahead of you, looking ahead?
I have, yeah. But I think, as I said to you off air, you know, I'm going to be managing and project managing, but it won't be in the UK. So all this talk about us, you know, what's going to be happening, unfortunately, I'm going to be developing in Sri Lanka. So it's a kind of different, you know, we won't have the materials and the kind of guys that we have that we do over here, and but in terms of like wood and and the materials that they use and everything that I should be okay. Sorry.
Right, anyone watching that's struggling, get in touch with Glenn and let's get a one-way ticket to Sri Lanka. We're laughing out there. Pair of shorts and flip-flops, off we go. Katie, you looking ahead next year?
I'll be on my trial in Sri Lanka with Glenn.
Well, I think despite all the doom and gloom, the great thing is people's phones are busy. I think we've got a really good year to look forward to. Let's ignore the negative, the price increases and stuff. I think, hopefully shows like this, we can get our voices across. We can hopefully influence people. And I think us small companies need a bit more support. But all being well, we'll be able to have a beer. Lockdown's finishing next week. I'm not quite sure with who you can't meet with. But the important thing is we're in a great industry. We've got some amazing tradesmen and women around us, and we need to focus on the good, because next year I think could be a belter. I think let's get this Brexit stuff out the way and let's get building again, because we're damn good at it here. So on that note, I'm going to go and wipe this dewdrop from my nose because I look like an old man standing here. I'm praying that Mr. Barrett next to me is going to put the kettle on, but he hasn't got one. So I'm going to go and find a coffee shop before I die. I'm not used to being outside on this lockdown. Great to see you, Katie. Thank you for coming on, Glenn. Thanks for all the comments, and as always, keep them coming in. Next week, TBC, we've got tax advice. It's that 3-letter word none of us like, but I'll be honest with you, there's a lovely lady from HMRC who's going to come on, and as long as none of us mention that word cash, we'll have a good one. Have a great afternoon all, and we will see you same time next week.